Well, it's coming up on Saturdays. If they can clinch a playoff berth with a win over Pittsburgh, the Ravens can, or losses by the Colts and Dolphins on Sunday. Colts play host to Tennessee. Dolphins play host to San Francisco. And then, like we mentioned already a couple times this stream, you've got Pittsburgh winning. If Pittsburgh wins on Saturday, they take the division.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Ravens win, they extend their chances of going after it. In terms of where Pittsburgh is right now, they're coming off a loss to Philadelphia, like we mentioned earlier on. The Eagles have won 10 straight games. And despite all the noise, they're just chugging right along. 27-13 was the final. Big nights for these two guys on the screen, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But looking at it most importantly from a Baltimore perspective, T.J. Watt has a low ankle injury. He is their game wrecker. Mike Tomlin just a short while ago says that he is optimistic that T.J. will play. And Sarah, without Watt, they are a different team. Go look up the record. It's like 1-9 or 1-10 or something without big number 90. He is a game changer for them.
Oh, for sure. And the offense is a different team without George Pickens. I feel like we saw that yesterday. It was just like the Steelers really didn't have a run game. And when it did start going, the whole game flipped on it, the Najee Harris fumble. It was neck and neck until then. Jeremy Fowler over the weekend, he kind of gave, this was his report when he was on ESPN. He said that Pickens had a grade 2 hamstring. So it says likely at least a couple of weeks. They're hopeful though for next week. So he's like, it's likely that he'll be out a couple of weeks, which would mean he could still miss Ravens and Chiefs for that matter, because they're so close together. But they're still hopeful, I think, against the Ravens. So, but they without George Pickens, there's nobody for Wilson in that do or die moment to like throw it up on a one-on-one and try to flip the field. They just don't have that. So with Pickens and TJ Watt, those are massive, massive, massive injuries to watch going into this game. But you said they're hopeful for Watt. Is that what you said?
Optimistic. Mike Tomlin just shared that specific.
I don't know if he's got the same coach speak as John Harbaugh, but optimistic from John Harbaugh doesn't mean like I remember when Roquan. Oh yeah, Roquan. We can't rule him out at all. And this was and then he was out. And so yeah, I don't know how to gauge that, but they're obviously massive. And if those two guys aren't there, the Ravens should have a much, much better chances. But we wish no lingering injury on anybody. It's fine. It's the Ravens got to take care of business, whether they're there or not.
Big point here is that without George Pickens, this is a different looking, different performing Steelers offense.
Yeah.
And Calvin Austin led the way for them in receiving last night, 5 for 65. Pat Freiermuth, their tight end, 3 for 22. And after that, just a bunch of dudes that had a catch here, a catch there. So, anyway, TJ Watt's going to do anything and everything within his power to be available.
Yeah.
But offensively speaking, if they can't put up points and Pickens isn't available, advantage Ravens, obviously.
I mean, if they don't have Watt running after Lamar, I mean, you just think of this offensive line that the Ravens have. I mean, that's just like Roger Rosengarten and Fa'alele, like all of them. It's like they could just breathe so much easier. So, but if he's out there, they better be ready. They got to prepare as if he's ready.
Yeah.
A couple of other things from that game. Ken McCusick just making a note that for those idolizing Tomlin over Harbaugh, did you see the timing of that timeout prior to the punt at Q2, 1:26 approximately? So Ken just kind of making a point that he doesn't have perfect game management. All coaches have their moments. And Roquan Smith, when he was asked about the Steelers, believe me when I tell you, during the bye week, they were already planning for the Steelers. I don't know that they put out too much, film for the Giants, which is one reason why Tez Walker got in there and got his touchdown. Roquan Smith said, "I'm playing the Steelers. We know what's on the line. It's the division title. You're willing to put everything on the line for that. I know personally I'm ready to go out on my shield. Check your manhood. Do your job. You do that, we'll win the game. Check your manhood." That sounds like a Ray Lewis type line.
Yeah.
And John Harbaugh said the attention because they said, now can you turn your attention to the Steelers? Harbaugh said the attention has already been turned to the Steelers. They looked at them over the bye.
I hope so. I hope so, because this team has been unfamiliar, unrecognizable in recent matchups with the Steelers. That's just the facts. The numbers behind the projected chances to win the AFC North heading into Week 16, according to ESPN Analytics and tweeted by Jameson, still favor Pittsburgh, 70.2%, Ravens, 29.8%. Now, going into the game itself, and some of this has to do with home field territory, Baltimore's a 6.5-point home favorite. So
it's a little bit larger than I had anticipated.
Me too.
But maybe Vegas is factoring in Watt and Pickens.
Could be. And this was probably tweeted out, both of these things, prior to Watt's optimistic label that for what it's worth from Vegas, Mike Tomlin there.
Vegas doesn't care about coach speak. I can promise you that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The way the playoff picture looks hasn't really changed much in terms of the Ravens as things stand. They would still match up if the postseason began today in Houston in a 5th versus 4th seed matchup with the Texans.
And so I just wanted to point out, going into the ESPN playoff machine, this explains why Jameson was saying that the Ravens, so he said the Ravens can clinch, a playoff berth. Okay, that was different than this. Even if the Ravens win on Saturday, the two teams would have a tied record. So then you would go to head-to-head to split the tie, and they would both be 1-1 if the Ravens win. So then you would go to division opponents, and if the Ravens win, they would be tied there also, your record in the division. So then the third tiebreaker would be your win percentage in conference games, and in that, the Steelers would win the tiebreaker. So that is why, even if the Ravens win on Saturday, the Steelers would still own the top spot. And what would need to happen going forward is that the Steelers lose another and the Ravens win another. So even then it wouldn't be finished. That's why I'm saying, like, there's an uphill battle. It can't just be when the Steelers beat the Steelers and you're fine. Like, you got to go on and continue to run the table.
And that's why at the time, and you didn't know whether or not to truly mark these as being, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the Vegas and the Cleveland losses could come back to bite them. I mean, those are both in conference games, when it comes to deciding the division. And at the time, you don't know how they're going to come back to bite you. But those are two examples that when you pull up the schedule, it just sticks out like a sore thumb, those two L's. Not only because of where those two teams, exactly. Yeah. Who they were, who they've become, and everything in between.
Absolutely. But I mean, you couldn't ask, if you're the NFL and you want to have ratings and all of that, you couldn't ask for a better setup heading into this game. It's your classic Ravens Steelers. It's going to be, you've got your Hard Knocks crew inside. It's Harbaugh, Tomlin. It's Lamar fighting for his life with MVP. They're trying to change narratives. I mean, there's just so much on the line this weekend. And outside of it being a playoff game, it doesn't get much bigger than this.
Oh, and on the other side of the aisle, too, as for as much as we've spent talking about the MVP discussion, which is very much like a Baltimore versus Buffalo fan base tirade kind of type thing. I think you pulled in something that has Pittsburgh wondering if the panic button should be pressed or not after this loss.
Yeah, so on Get Up, that's kind of the question they asked. So Tomlin's answer is pretty funny. First, the media asking him about what this loss means going forward, and then the Get Up crew asked, should they be panicking? Here's how all that went down.
How do you keep this loss from snowballing and carrying into the next two games?
It's a loss. I mean, let's not get dramatic.
I just got to pause it there first. That is the way you have to answer that. Now, the question is real, though, because they have, 3 games in 11 days, and the Ravens have the same. but they started off with the loss. The Ravens started with an easy win against the Giants. And so, but that's exactly, let's not get dramatic, he says. But Rex Ryan's not trying to hear that, because then Rex Ryan got dramatic.
What an answer. So, and that's exactly the right thing, obviously,
Absolutely.
for him to say he's as good a coach as we've seen in the league in a very long time. However, if you are a fan of the Steelers, should you be panicking?
Yeah, you should. And I'm going to tell you that they're not as good as their record says they are. I mean, they really aren't. He's a great coach. Now, don't get me wrong. But ever since Russ took over, and this is why I like Justin Fields better. The impact that Russ has had on the rushing game, they're absolutely atrocious running the football now.
Yeah. So
They have gotten to be very below average. And I believe Najee Harris fumbled yesterday too.
Yeah,
so
that's what I said. It turned
I'm sorry.
turned
Yes,
the game.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's what
Yeah.
turned the game. It was neck and neck until that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I follow him on that though, because I think Russ opened up their offense in a way that Justin couldn't, and now they have balance, but perhaps they're imbalanced because it's taken away from the rushing attack, which is what Rex is getting at.
Right. No, that's exactly it. Is he just feels like, as a defensive coordinator, he's arguing from that point of view. He's like, it would be easier to stop Russ, especially without George Pickens, because you always, as a defense, want to stop the run first, and the run game has just been decimated since they put Russ in the lineup. And so he's like, great. So now I don't have to worry about that. And now all I have to worry about is stopping Russ without legitimate wide receivers. So whereas if you put in Fields, he's like, now I got to worry about a guy who impacts the run game. And now I have to worry about that and then the passing game. So that's his point. Although I'm with you. I mean, again, he's the defensive coordinator, but I just feel like the offense has been better since Russell Wilson was put in the lineup. And then in terms of panicking, why in the world would the Steelers panic when they've won, is it 8 out of the last 9 or 9 out of the last 10 against the Ravens? Like, I hope they do panic. I hope they do start to feel a little squirmish and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, they're not going to panic against a division rival whose number they've had. And so hopefully the Ravens aren't, banking on that either. I'm sure they're not. But this, like I said, with so much on the line, I'm sure both teams are going to come in with the appropriate attitude towards the other.
You got to like the way this is setting up for the Ravens rushing defense. Obviously, they're the top ranked group in the entire league, but you also get big Mike Pierce back as a run stuffer specialist that he is, along with Travis Jones, who, yes, was hobbling around during points of yesterday's game in the Meadowlands, but this is a group that can absolutely clog up space in the middle. And I get the sense that they're going to have some success doing that. Can they stop the pass? Remains to be seen, but as we've shown in recent days and in recent weeks, since week 11, they're trending in the right direction in a number of categories in that passing category from a defensive perspective. Some observations on snap counts as compiled by Jeff Zarebek of The Athletic from yesterday's win over the Giants. As he writes it, Nate Wiggins starts and plays all but 7 snaps. Ardarius Washington goes the distance after initially not traveling with the team on Saturday. Desmond King played a role in his Ravens debut, including as a punt return specialist, taking over for Tylan Wallace. And Sarah, as we were sort of speculating yesterday and waiting for these final count numbers to come out, Trenton Simpson had no defensive role until garbage time. So that meant he was benched through the first 3 quarters.
Demoted maybe is the right. Yeah.
Demoted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we were wondering. You brought it up first. I feel like you mentioned it to me before our show even started. And so, listen, I think that's the correct decision based off of how he's playing and also how it has impacted Roquan. I think since the Ravens have rotated the 2 more veterans, Harrison, I don't even know is a veteran, but obviously he's got more time than Simpson and more experience. But as soon as that's happened, Roquan's been playing better. They're where they're supposed to be. But just to be clear, while I think this is the correct decision in the short term this year in what the Ravens are trying to accomplish, in no way have I given up on Trenton Simpson long term. I'm still hoping that he's on the Patrick Queen trajectory where he starts to come alive more in his 3rd and 4th years in the league. So, but the Ravens have not been shy in making personnel changes on that defensive side of the ball.
Well, and probably no coincidence, as you just alluded to, that Roquan is grading out like the top-ranked player, the highest-graded Raven in Week 15 against the Giants. And yes, we understand the lack of offensive attack that they have right now in New York, but Rowe comes out as an 87 flat. That's the highest-graded Raven. Lamar just below him at 86.2. Rashad Bateman, who we'll hear from in just a second, 85.6 after a career day for him, at least in terms of his first career multi-touchdown performance. Daniel Fa'alele sneaks his way into the top 5, and Ardarius Washington rounds out this group. This is all the minimum threshold is 25 snaps. And Sarah, how about a small little victory lap and a powerful little comment here from Rashad Bateman post-game speaking with reporters?
I think I've shown myself that I am what I say I am. And, hopefully that I've showed the Ravens fans, this organization, Coach Harbs, Monk, whoever, that I am a playmaker. Earning Lamar's trust, teammates' trust, it's been big.
7 touchdowns on the year, Sarah, 654 yards receiving in 14 games so far this year. And hard not to be happy for number 7.